Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
But it's been a long time.
That the aim of MC2 is to inform and to inspire and to educate the church in providing effective care for their overseas missionaries and missionary families. So our desire tonight, our goal tonight, is to do that, to inform, inspire, and educate, and mainly to inspire. And the topic that we have for our breakout section is Go Teams.
Thank you.
Another term, and maybe you're more familiar with, is advocate teams. Those support teams that are embedded in a congregation that supports a missionary. We decided to call it a Go Team, just to maybe give it a little fresh, a little fresh name. Maybe the name Advocate Team's been around for a while, so maybe a Go Team just kind of freshens it up a little bit. First of all, I hope everybody has picked up two handouts. One is what basically we will be referring to and from which we gleaned a lot of our information, and another handout on safely communicating with your missionary, because a large part of Go Teams or advocate teams revolves around communicating with our missionaries. Our first time, we have an hour from 8 to 9. So what we'd like to do is in the first part of our hour together, we would like to do the informing and educating part in just helping us understand what is an advocate team, why do we have them in our congregations, what they do, and the benefits of advocate teams for the members of the team and also for the missionary. And then we would like to use the remainder of our time together to hear your comments, to hear your questions, to hear your experiences. And I wonder how many of you are already part of an advocate team. How many of you are members on a team or have been in the past? Yes,
Good.
That's wonderful. So we will look forward to your input and hearing from your experiences as we all learn more about this together. So as we go along, if you have questions or comments, don't be afraid to just jot them down on your paper so you don't forget them, because we want to hear what you have to tell us too. Okay.
Thank you. I think, even though we had a time of prayer and worship upstairs, we'll just pray right now too. Heavenly Father, thank you for this gathering together. And we believe this is an important topic because we want to support our international workers. We want to learn what you are doing around the world. We want to be a part of it. And so we just pray that you would help us even now to understand further what this is all about, and bless our time together. In Jesus' name, amen. I'd like to just say a few things about understanding tonight's discussion, especially about terminology. What we're talking about tonight are teams within the congregations, our congregations, supportive of missionary units overseas. Go Team is what we chose, but it's a little bit, I'll show you, but it can be an advocate team, a Barnabas team, a care team. There are different names that we put on this supportive team. Now, smaller congregations with maybe fewer missionaries might have a structure like this, where there's a governing body, the Board of Elders, the Church Council, church staff, and then the Go teams are reporting to the church staff. A few missionaries and maybe the church itself is a smaller church. Larger congregations would have the governing body, the pastor, of course, the pastor and the other one too, church staff, and then global outreach or missions team. And that's what I wanted to share. Sometimes the global outreach team is called a Go team. But for tonight's purpose, Go teams are these within the congregation, missionaries congregation, very supportive of those missionary folks. Our Go team experience has been very, very positive. We went out to East Africa in 1973 and as teachers, and first went to Zaire after learning Swahili, and then into Kenya, working as teachers in a national church. And then through the years, as we became senior missionaries, different positions, and then working with other organizations in East Africa as well. Those early years in the 70s, do any of you remember aerograms? lightweight letters. We'd write an aerogram in Nairobi or somewhere else in Kenya or somewhere, send it off, and expect it would take 2 to 3 weeks to get here, wherever we were writing to. And expect 2 or 3 weeks to get a response, if they wrote quickly. You know, you're talking a month to a month and a half turnaround. So different than today, of course. Of course. In our home congregation, we knew that our home congregation was praying for us each Sunday, and that was huge. That was huge. That was a strong connection with us and our home congregation. But most interest in our work, in us, was shown when we came home on home assignment furlough. And that was great. That was wonderful. We were grateful for it. But 2 years, 3 years, those first terms were 4 years. It's a long time between really connecting with our home congregation. A long time. And so there wasn't so much interaction. Make a phone call, it was like $5 a minute working through an operator. And when you said you were doing 2 minutes, it was cut. And so no time for goodbyes even. I mean, it was just a different world. And some of you remember that world. But in the last 10 years or so, an advocate team, a Go team formed in our home congregation, committed to meet in a home each month, except December, they didn't do it, but committed to meet and pray. And that made such a huge difference for us. In the last 10 years, we've been in South Sudan, in a place called Malakal. We needed those prayers. And to know that they were praying and they were interested in our work and wanted to know more. And they expected prayer items from us. You know, we need to inform them, and we needed to let them know how God was answering those prayers. And so we knew we could put on the calendar that, you know, our Go team was meeting and praying. And really, it's hard to describe, but it was just a wonderful thing to know. These friends were there for us. We came back from Uganda, our last term, about 1.5 years ago, and we thought, and now we're in the home office of our mission, doing member care. And we thought our team would disband. They said, no, we can't disband. We got to continue to meet and pray for you. Are you still working in the Lord's Vineyard? Yes. No. We'll continue that. That is just so wonderful. And so we're able to report with them and pray with them for missionary member care as the Go team continues. What a blessing.
Mm-hmm. So, if we look at what is a Go team, as we've said, it's known by other names, Advocate Team or Barnabas Team or Care Team, Missionary Support Team, whatever a particular church congregation chooses. But the idea is that it's a small group of people, and now I think that our handout says 5 to 10. Personally, I think 5 might be a little bit small, but ours is up as 12 people, and that has worked very well. And it's that group of people who really commit to coordinating their congregation's support of one of its missionaries. And that can be a single, a couple, a family, and also to serve as their champions to the larger congregation. So it's that intentional connection between a congregation and its missionaries. And ideally, every missionary supported by a congregation would have their own advocate team, Go team, and that was the opportunity then to develop that more intimate relationship with a missionary than in that small group. And when we talk about coordinated churches support, maybe we're thinking of financial support, but I think in more cases it's not the financial support, it's more of the missionary care kind of support. It can be, it definitely is the prayer support, but also the spiritual support, the emotional support, just that moral support, that encouragement. It can be practical support. It's just a myriad ways that a small group of people can come along and uphold and undergird the work of their missionary and the life of their missionary. And research has shown that supportive community is an important factor in missionary resilience. Now we think of supportive community on the field, which is very important, but also supportive community that an advocate team, a Go team, can give to that missionary is huge in a missionary's resilience and effectiveness on the field. Oh dear.
Turn it back on.
Well, how do I do that? I just pressed the little button. Oh,
there you go.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to look at why do we want to do this? Why do we want to make advocate teams, form advocate teams? And I really liked what our handout said in drawing from 3 John verses 6 and 7. That John writes, "You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God." Because it was for the sake of the name that they went out. And remember what we heard just tonight in our plenary session about the power, the impact of that kingdom living, that truth showing, and how a team and a community can just speak volumes of who the Lord is and how He works in our lives when we live in unity, when we live in that supportive community, and that's also part of what a Go team can do. When a missionary knows they are supported like that at home, it's huge. And it is that demonstration of that congregation's commitment. And to those it sends out to go with them in every way possible. But also, a Go team provides a missionary with a safe place to go to. So it's a reciprocal relationship, and very, very important to go with, but also be there for the missionary to go to.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't turn it off.
Okay. So the role of a Go team is twofold, as we've seen here. In terms of care, prayer support. This next one, spiritual and emotional support, is really important. There needs to be a trust level there where the missionary can know people that he or she can share with. The joys, the frustrations, the challenges. Knowing that there's prayer and they care. And I think that really is huge. To have someone like that, a group like that you can just share. We're human. We have our problems and we need to pray through. And these folks we can pray with. And then, of course, the practical support too. Transitioning is something huge for missionaries and for missionary kids. Back and forth, leaving, what is your home country, really? There's a need for help sometimes, certainly housing or a vehicle or just to get settled. Some bags of groceries and we had help with groceries and some furniture and just practical things that we needed, and they knew it and were very happy to help us unpack our library of books from 40 years. We stored books and stuff, and our Go team helped us unpack, which was wonderful. And representation to the congregation, as Gail mentioned, advocates for the missionary and their work to the church. We were just thinking the other day of ways like with children's ministry, and bringing the missionary story to the children's ministry or youth ministry, and having the missionary work brought to the children to hear about, learn about, pray about. It can be a wonderful thing, and a role from a Go team to help out, and because they're informed, they know what's going on. Fostering connectedness between the missionary and the congregation in any way. Sometimes there are thermometers of where support is needed, or a project. I remember one project in our congregation which everybody seemed to grab hold of, and it was buying camels for a particular people group in Tanzania, where they didn't have camels before but needed them. And it was a wonderful project. And so care, and then representation of their work within the congregation. Keeping it on the front burner, I think, is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I remember talking about practical support, there was a time, do you remember cassette tapes? Well, our congregation always recorded the pastor's sermon on a cassette tape. And there was someone in our congregation, in our team, who would put that cassette tape in a bubble mailer and send it out to us, and we would get them. week by week, several weeks later, but we would get them, and that was a huge, it was a spiritual support, it was an emotional support, it was also very practical support. And then during that time too, our congregation prayed for each missionary every Sunday. So we would hear on that recording, we would hear the congregation praying for us. And that was really huge. When we talk about the Go Team's tasks, we want to look at 10 particular tasks. And I think the very first one is the praying, the commitment to pray consistently, to pray daily, and to pray specifically. And that's where then there's that expectation of receiving prayer requests, and specific prayer requests, and also receiving answers. And it can be a catalyst for congregation-wide prayer to engage the youth ministry in adopting a missionary and praying for him or her. It can be where somebody on the Go Team has the mission minute in the Sunday service once in a while or on a regular basis. It can be setting up an electronic prayer flash, so when people can sign up for that, and so when our missionary has a particular need, they send it to the Go Team, and the Go Team gets it out to those who have wanted to pray, and it gets out. So there are just, ways to pray and ways to get the prayer requests these days with technology the way it is. Just to have a phone call or a FaceTime, just visit. The prayer requests can come very, very quickly, and they can be very relevant for the time. Another thing that's important for the Go Team is to meet. We found that in our Go Team that we met, they meet once a month, and they decided that they would meet in a home. Sometimes they meet for dinner, sometimes they meet after dinner, and they're committed to it. They've chosen the fourth Monday of the month, and they just know it's on their calendar. And when they meet, they expect to get those updates from their missionary, to hear the prayer requests and hear the answers. When they meet, it's an opportunity that they could use their time together to learn more about where their missionary is serving, maybe the kinds of work they're doing. Maybe it's someone who's working in an oral society, so the Go Team takes it upon themselves to learn more about what that means. How do you share the gospel in an oral society? Maybe it's someone who's been called to an unreached peoples group, so that Go Team then takes it upon themselves to learn all they can about that particular group. Maybe they use their time together as a training piece, like the video, like the MC2 conference. If you go onto the website, you can go back to past conferences, and you can access the audio from a particular breakout or a plenary. You can access handouts. And your Go Team time can be a real time of learning and growing just in your own mission knowledge, but usually, mainly somehow connected to your missionary. It can be an opportunity to read a book together. Maybe there's a missionary biography, somebody who served in that particular area where your missionary is. Get that book and read it together and talk about it when you meet for your Go Team meeting. Or maybe you're planning a project together, or you're going to have a part in the Mission Sunday. So you do that together in your Go Team meeting. And these days, again, with technology the way it is, during your meeting you could FaceTime with your missionary. You could Skype or Zoom. You could talk on the phone, put on the speaker, and everybody can hear. It's just amazing the way that we can stay connected to our missionaries these days. Oh, okay. And also, another task of the Go Team is to provide a safe place. And as we expect to hear those prayer requests and the answers to prayer, we want to be sure that we've established trust both ways, that our missionary can trust us with their prayer requests, trust us with their struggles, trust us with their joys, and know that we are going to keep confidentiality. Also, it's important to say that policy, church policy may be that if there's any kind of any concern for a moral or a safety issue, then it may be that the church requires us to report that, and that's a limited confidentiality that we have. But that trust is so essential to have an effective Go team. And also remembering that as a Go team, we're not counselors. We want to be good listeners, we want to be encouragers, but when we have concerns maybe that we think our missionary could use some help from pastoral care or something, then we'll seek that out for them, and they will trust us that, okay, if this is something that you're concerned about, maybe I will listen to you, because that trust has been established. And then we talked about maintaining communication on the field, when our missionaries on the field, but also when they're on home assignment, for updates, for practical needs, for checking in, just saying, how are you doing? How can we help? We care. We want you to know that we care. And it also is a two-way street, as we said. It's also for the Go team to give news of the congregation to the missionary, to help the missionary stay up to date with what's happening at the church, in the congregation, with events, with a particular sermon series or whatever it is, so that helps our missionary to also feel part of the congregation. Another thing is to provide help and advocacy in building the missionary support team, and that can be, not every Go team, not every church will function that way, but maybe there's something that we can do just to help build up that missionary's financial support in some ways, in very creative, practical ways that we can do. Maybe it's something that we can do to offer to send out a missionary's prayer letter. Maybe they'll do it, the electronic version from where they are, but maybe they have people that want a hard copy, and maybe that's a little bit more challenging for them. So that's something that a Go team can do. And then something else is to coordinate on-field service. And that could be even something like, maybe there's a need, a practical need that the missionary has in ministry, but maybe there's someone in our congregation, maybe even in our Go team, who has that particular expertise or experience and would be willing to help. Maybe, for example, our missionary is part of a family and our missionary is homeschooling, but she just really needs some encouragement. Maybe she needs to know some resources. So maybe there's somebody on our Go team who's a teacher, or somebody in the congregation who is homeschooling. And so the Go team then can connect those needs and provide that on-field service that just is an encouragement, just boosts the effectiveness of that missionary where they are. Maybe our missionary needs a retreat time away, but she doesn't feel free to tell the people at home that she really needs a rest. Well, maybe the Go team can advocate for her, to encourage her, or maybe they sense that she just doesn't have the resource to do it. So maybe they can come alongside and help her do that. Maybe there's a medical concern. Maybe one of the children has a medical concern. Well, as somebody in our congregation, a nurse practitioner, maybe she could help. Just those kinds of very practical ways. Maybe we heard about a short go team that organized the short-term team just to go to visit their missionary, just to offer the missionary a chance to have fun by showing them her country and some of the work. But it wasn't a work team per se. It wasn't something where the missionary was required to entertain the group the whole time or organize a lot of work. It was just a fun time, and that proved to be very, very helpful in keeping that missionary resilient. And maybe as we looked at the front of this time together, that maybe it's the go team then who goes to the missions team to tell them, okay, to inform the team about how their missionary is doing, to keep them pertinent information on the table for them, updates on the well-being, on the situation, on needs, so that, again, being that advocate and also representing the missionary to the congregation in various ways, a table at the mission fair, or an interactive computer display out in the foyer that the Go Team sponsors from time to time. Or maybe some little feature that the Go Team writes for the church monthly newsletter. Something like that, because it's the Go Team that has that relationship with the missionary and can speak to the congregation on that person's behalf. Or assist with the home assignment plans. All those practical things like we mentioned of housing and vehicles and schooling options for the children. We know friends of ours who had a child with special needs. So somebody on the Go Team offered to do research to find out what school in the area would really be beneficial for that child. And it turned out to be just an excellent school year for that child because someone was willing to do that research. Maybe it's someone providing their cabin for a vacation for a missionary family. Maybe it's help with re-entry, taking the family on some outings to some new places that have come up in their area since they've been home. Just all kinds of practical ways. And it really is only limited by our imaginations and our creativity on what we might do to support our missionaries in all those different ways. And help with reconnecting when they're home. Maybe hosting events in your house or in the church where inviting the larger congregation to come and hear the missionary's story, or introducing them to the new pastor or the new staff members to help them reconnect. Again, a variety of ways, just some things that a team can do and would be so beneficial for a missionary.
Thank you.
So, does the missionary have a role in training go-tos? Absolutely. Absolutely. To keep it going, to encourage them in their meetings, and appreciate what they're doing. I think it's vital for the missionary to suggest who can be on our Go Team from our congregation. Who is a champion? Who is interested? Who would be willing to meet on a monthly basis? And keep it going. I think that's the key. Maybe after a while, it might get harder and harder to schedule time. But the missionaries know who within the congregation would be good to be on that team, and they should be encouraged to do so. Of course, communication regularly is vital. Sorry, I'm in your way. Yeah, without that, interest could dwindle. With prayer requests and also with answers, because the Lord does answer. And what an encouragement when we pray together and see how the Lord answers. or it's to continue praying because we're waiting for that answer, whether it's yes or no. It's very, very important for the missionary to continue with that and to share honestly again what their needs are, spiritual needs, physical needs, emotional, financial, being honest, and after all, it's praying together. It's not saying, please support me with this. I need this, but it's praying together that God would answer, and He does. He certainly does. To the very, I was praying with others for a motorcycle at one point in our missionary career, and I asked a mechanic in Kenya what would be the best given our situation. And he said, well, trail bike, you're a small guy, well, 175 cc would be good. And this was before we went on home assignment. We were praying about it with him and others. And our very first speaking engagement at a camp in northern Minnesota, the children in the camp raised money, and it was a goodly amount. And the cook's son had a motorcycle in Wisconsin at their cabin that he only used in the summertime when he happened to be at the cabin, and it happened to be a 175 cc that he gave me, the very color I was hoping for. God answers prayer. Yeah. About what God is doing where they are. This is important. This really is important because it's not really about the missionary at all. It's about what God is doing through the local church and through the mission and through the team that we're talking about, mission teams and God's people. One of our terms, we were in an umbrella ministry in Nairobi, and we worked with many missions, and it was just wonderful to share with people what God is doing in Nairobi through our mission, but through God's workers, the church, the national church, and partnering with others. And that wider view is important for folks to know about, and it's exciting. With openness and honesty. And also, the missionary's role is to pray for his or her team. It goes both ways. How can we pray for you? Where are you at? Where's our church at? Where's our congregation at? How can we pray? We're one.
Mm-hmm. Then we want to look at keeping a Go team going. It's really important that this concept of advocate teams has the endorsement of the pastor and the congregational leadership. For example, just in a way a pastor could do that during the missionary prayer time. The pastor might pray for the missionary, but he might also pray for that missionary's Go team. Or at a time of a commissioning or a recommissioning of the missionary, at that time the Go team also could be commissioned or recommissioned if they're going to keep working with that missionary. It's very, very important to have that endorsement by the leadership. And it's important to have consistent team leadership within the team. As we said, it's really, really vital to have one person who's willing to be the coordinator, to remind everybody that, okay, our meeting time is coming up, to be the one maybe to field emails if there's emails going around. It really is vital. to have a regular meeting time also is very important. And also that regular and frequent communication with the missionary. That is what keeps a team going. And a clear understanding of the role, why are we here, why are we doing this, and the tasks. What is it that we can do? And another thing that's beneficial is regular connection with other Go teams in the congregation for some kind of cross-pollination, for encouragement, for maybe doing some projects together. Maybe it's Mission Sunday is coming, and so the Go teams work together for whatever activities happening where they feature their missionary, just that working together. And the recognition and the appreciation of the teams from the congregational leadership down to the missionary too. That the missionary lets the team know how much that they are appreciated. And then that empowerment that a Go team appreciates. Maybe they hear of a project. If they have the authority to set the project in motion, or carry out an idea that they have, or speak to the missions team on behalf of the missionary when it's time to look at budgets, for example. If the Go team has that sense of empowerment, it really helps a team to keep going. And that's what we really want, is for the teams to get in place and to keep on going.
Thank you. Part B to my motorcycle story. Sorry I didn't mention it. Those kids did raise some money at the camp, which was wonderful. It was just enough to send that motorcycle to Kenya. Come in. Praise God. Why join a Go team? We asked this question in an interview. Why join a Go team? We asked the Go team members. What I'd like to do, if you're able to read, we're going to go down sentence by sentence and just go through the room and read the sentence. Can we do that? If you can't see it or you don't want to read, just say pass, and we'll go on to the next one. Not a problem.
Where is this?
It'll come.
It's coming up. So, can we do that? Can we?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You will grow as a believer.
Mm-hmm. Go.
Thank you. Yes?
You will realize being part of something big and important.
Thank you. Let's see, let's go here.
A good way to contribute to the life of the congregation.
Thank you.
A real gift is a caring community that we've developed. I look forward to being with these wonderful people.
Thank you.
In my experience, I feel it has helped me grow in my relationship with the Lord.
Thank you.
Which way?
Yes.
Mm.
To grow in relationship with missionaries.
Thank you.
Learn more about what's going on in missions.
Mm-hmm.
To spend more time in prayer for specific prayer needs.
Thank you. And then behind, please.
It prompts me to pray.
Mm-hmm. Why join a Go team?
You'll be amazed to hear what the missionary does every day.
Learning. Okay.
A unique way to participate in kingdom work.
Thank you. Hard to read.
A chance to be helpful in valuable ways.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Please.
A worthwhile commitment.
Mm-hmm. And finally, behind there, if you can read it. A little
Take
hard.
advantage of the opportunities to connect with some fascinating people and learn about the country where they serve.
Thank you all for reading.
So that was the voice of, many voices of Go Team members, but also the voice of a missionary who had a Go Team, who has a Go Team. That missionary said, it is very special for me to know that there's a group of people who want to get to know me as a person and also be part of my work. Another one, the response was, it's an opportunity to build cohesive relationships, and I really appreciate that, especially when I'm living in a culture not my own, and I'm working hard to build friendships with people here, to know I have some cohesive relationships back home. Another one said, it's really valuable to me to know that there are people who want to go deeper with me in my mission calling. And somebody else said, when I return, it's so nice to have a group of people with whom I already have relationships who are supportive of me and want to hear my stories. So just as a Go Team can benefit Go Team members, it's also a great blessing and benefit to the missionary. So now, as we've been kind of informing and educating that piece, now what questions do you have, or comments, or something you'd like to share from your own experience being on a Go Team, an advocate team? We'd like to hear them and share them.
Yes, please.
When churches, Sam and Son missionaries know them very well. They have a big chunk of their financial support or whatever. This all sort of seems workable. How about, if the church also contributes to different people who have requested or come to the church, and there hasn't really been a great connection at any point, where they're just finding many people to help support. Do you encourage trying to establish this with all your, or more just the one in the sending church? Or?
So the question is, when a congregation is sending missionaries, and it may be a large amount for individual missionaries within the congregation, but others come asking for support and they're not within the congregation, the question is, what do we do? Or
Do we want to have a support Go Team for
do,
that?
do we want to have
person?
a Go Team for that individual as well?
Or does each sending church, they hopefully have a sending church. Our church might just be a minor thing, and hopefully their sending church would develop this for, it seems like if you don't have a relationship with the person to start with and no one in the church knows them, it would be very hard to.
The relationship with that individual is very important, and it would be hard for, I'm just repeating for the recording, to start a Go Team for someone that the relationship isn't there. And you're right that there are missionaries who, get their support from many churches, and that's good. And I guess it would be to ask that missionary, where is your home congregation and how are they supporting you? And do you have a Go Team with that congregation? Because it would be very beneficial to have it. And now you can share why. But they would agree, I'm sure. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, I would think it would be to their benefit, even though they are slightly unknown in the church that's going to support them. Be to that missionary's benefit to become known and build a relationship with at least a few people.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have a relationship with people in the church, pretty soon the church says we don't need to support you.
Who is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is this? Very, very good point. Yes.
I think it also comes back to the church that has said, yes, we will give you money. That's been kind of our situation where we've decided, we could keep giving out money and we don't know these people. And we just have said, we're going to give more money to maybe fewer people so that we can have that relationship with them. And I guess that was kind of something that we decided.
Sure, and it's understandable. You know, again, that communication is so important, and also understanding what your budgetary limits are. Yeah,
And we don't want to just be throwing money at them, we want to be able to be in relationship with them.
Right.
absolutely, absolutely, yes. And it isn't just a matter of throwing money, it's learning, you know, we want to learn what God is doing around the world through them and through the church and in every way. Yeah. Yes.
I think the point you made about recognition is really important for the GO team, affirming them in their roles. I know that there seems to be a shelf life in participation in advocacy groups, and I'm surprised yours have stuck with you that long. It seems to be the exception rather than the rule.
I think so.
And I think people also don't understand what's involved in a monthly commitment. We've used a book called Serving as Senders. I'd recommend
Yes.
it.
Yes.
And there's another one called Minding the Gap.
Mm-hmm.
Both excellent tools for serving teams, because people need to kind of grow in their role, you know, and it can get stale after a while. And then also, it seems important to give them a task that they can strive toward. You know, that you talked about, you know, projects and things. I think you mentioned that.
Yes.
Well, what difference am I making? I'm praying, but I can't really see the fruit of what I'm doing, or, you know, that kind of thing. And if there's something they need, like a car, or they need more support in the congregation so they can get an apartment that isn't 25 miles away from where they work. You know, have to take 5 different transports just to get into a place because they can't afford something closer to the inner city. Yeah, that people get excited by challenges.
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah.
They really do. And I think in your reading, the handout, one of the handouts we gave you, you'll see that the time frame of a GO team commitment is 3 or 4 years, and then you talk about it. And it may be time to reform, or maybe the leader needs to change, so the leader is grooming someone else to take over because people move and, you know, life moves on too. So you keep that in mind as well. But I think the key is there is a team praying for that missionary. Yes.
Most of the time, we charge the missionaries for looking for that person that would head up a team and be responsible as far as on that.
Yes.
Because you know the people that care about you and stuff like that. So who is that you're going to be charged to head up a team group like that, and then just give them information about how a team can work certain ways. But number one, I find you start with somebody that already cares about them. Like you say, you got a little bit of relationship, take it to another level.
So important. Yeah. For longevity, so important. Yeah.
I think just the communication, or establishing that communication and expectations before going, from experience being on the field and that communication or expectations weren't there, or that it wasn't completely communicated, even to have the effect, and my GO team would have looked a little different than what we're looking at.
Okay.
But to want the missionary to be open or to feel like there's a safe place, just to have that completely communicated, maybe even reiterated when there's connecting.
Absolutely.
Yes. I think because of different dynamics on the team, it's easy for lies of the enemy to come in, or just different
For
things
sure.
to feel like he's going to want to sever that connection. And so I think it's really important to keep truth of just why the GO team is there, why the missionary is there, and how they're working together, and what that should look like, setting that up before, but even continuing that throughout the relationship. Just communication is very key.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So vital.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
One more thing that I wanted to mention is that building that understanding of who my missionary is and where they are and how I'm going to pray and the specific prayer things. Maybe it's you're setting up your GO team with a missionary who's just new and going out, or maybe your missionaries come home on a home assignment and you're meeting together. But if your missionary is in a high-risk situation, and here tomorrow we'll have this panel on caring for a missionary in high risk. Well, we have friends who prepared a Bible study on risk to be used with their missionary who was preparing to go out, so that the Go team understood the context that the missionary was going into. And they worked at it together while the missionary was home, so that the missionary knew what the team understood, and the team understood the context of the missionary. And so when the prayer requests came, or just praying, as the team prayed for the missionary, they understood a bit. What are the risks? What is the context? How does our missionary interpret risk? Or what do they feel? What do we understand about risk? And that really helped in that particular situation with communication, with prayer especially, and with that support. So it was just a real concrete tool that they worked with together when they had a time together. I just wanted to mention that because it's another thing that a team can do to help that communication and support and prayer.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Before you leave, we have something here just for you to take. If you have allergy to nuts, don't take one of these.
You know,
What?
some friends of ours gave us these Reese's Pieces and said, you're going to have this breakout, so here, have a treat. So we were we were a little worried about, we hear so much about nut allergies. And so we didn't want to have everybody take them and open them and have everybody collapse during our breakout.
Class on the drive home.
But for the drive home, you need a little extra energy.
So this is your reward for sitting with us for this hour.
And just before you go, the yellow paper in the back in your folder is evaluation. You can do it now before you drive home or as soon as you get home. Fill out the evening session, plenary session in this one.
Eat the
So
candy
it's fresh.
first.
Yeah. I think it's guaranteed 5-star rating for the candy. Thank you so much for coming. Have a safe trip, and we'll see you back tomorrow.
Serving is tender.
Yes.
Oh, that's another one.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Take a handful.